Can you say at this very moment that you love yourself? If so, congratulations. I love you too. And well done. The love that you have for yourself is the love that our species needs. The love that we have for ourselves individually is the love that our species needs collectively. And if you can sit here and believably say that you love yourself, think about this. Every single moment that you have lived throughout this lifetime has led you to this very moment. And in this very moment, you have the capacity to have love for yourself. And if you have the capacity to have love for yourself in this very moment, well, then that means that no matter what has happened to you along your life path, you have to be able to find compassion for every version of yourself that has ever lived on this planet. No matter what the situation was, no matter what the memory is, no matter how shameful it felt, no matter how angry it makes you to think about, all of the fights, all of the lies, all of the breakups, all of the stealing, everything. Every single moment that brings you shame, every moment that makes you sad or makes you angry, has gotten you to this very moment. And in this very moment, you have the capacity to say that you love yourself. And it is my belief that we must find compassion and reconcile with every version of ourselves that have ever existed. Whether you believe in interfamily systems or parts work or not, I think it is imperative for us to create a relationship with ourselves that is built on core values like compassion and connection and reconciliation. Because life is tough. It was never meant to be easy down here on planet Earth, aka Spirit School. It's very, very difficult. It has been throughout and it remains to be. And I feel as though if we are to move in a more positive direction as a species, if we want to find a collective connection and collective compassion, well then first we need to find the compassion within. And I have a little practice for you today, but before we get into that, if you are struggling to find that love for yourself or that compassion for yourself, firstly, I'm sorry to hear that. But I feel as though I can help today. This practice that I will show you shortly will definitely be a great starting point, and I think it would hold value for any being to start to partake within this practice. But I think firstly, let's speak a little bit about parts work and interfamily systems and what that actually means. You know, there's many beliefs that every version of you that has ever existed still lives within you. Whether that is on an energetic perspective, more touching on a spiritual side, the soul, or whether we want to speak about our nervous systems holding memory so that we react to the world often from a behavioral pattern that exists because of a younger version of us imprinting that behavioral pattern onto our nervous system more often than not to protect ourselves. I can give you an example. When I post sometimes on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, I start to feel worried that I'm going to be bullied or that I'm going to be shamed. And those patterns are not from me now. Those patterns derive from a version of me that was younger, that was bullied and that was shamed by other boys. And that version of me then imprinted a protective shell within my nervous system to try and avoid being shamed or bullied, which meant not speaking up, not being himself. And that transposes across into my nervous system now. So sometimes still, when I'm about to post, even when I post this video later, it might happen. I might start to feel a little bit of anxiousness. I might start to feel some fight or flight mode kicking in, breathlessness. I might start to get thoughts of all these bullies coming in, etc. And now it's easy for me to recognize where those patterns come from. But if you're new to looking within and new to finding compassion for yourself, I think it's really important for you to understand that this does happen. And it's a beautiful conversation to come across within. It's a beautiful practice to come across within, recognizing that you are you now because of you back then. And you can reconcile with every version of yourself, and you can start to understand all of these patterns. I just given you one simple pattern. There's literally thousands of them, if not more, within us, because every single second of the day we're creating observations which are being imprinted on our nervous system to protect, to survive. And so some of those patterns are extremely healthy, but some aren't. And so pattern recognition is really important in terms of healing, in terms of existing, in terms of creating a better future for yourself internally, and then thus collectively for our species. And so I think it's super important for us to begin to look back at these past versions of ourselves that we're trying to create a connection with, that are imprinted within our nervous system, or energetically, if you will, if you want to go down a spiritual path, and start to realize the needs that were unmet. The needs that were unmet, whether that be by loved ones, by friends, or by ourselves, or our teachers, etc. Because unmet needs lead to resentment. And resentment is energy that we should not be holding long term, because it creates disharmony within our bodies, and disharmony creates dis-ease, and dis-ease is disease. So I think it's very important for us to start to ponder what it is that we needed when we were children that wasn't met. I could give you a myriad of examples, I don't really want to go too deeply into my childhood, etc. right now. I can do that, and I often do, but yeah, needs unmet, our basic needs: to be loved, to feel secure, to be fed, to be watered. All of those needs need to be met at a minimum, but learning how to deal with your emotions in real time, not something that many people knew how to do when I was growing up, most certainly in Ireland. So much of my needs usually relate back to that as a young man, a young child. Not being able to understand what grief was, not being able to understand what shame was, and how shame could arise within a young man or a young child's mind and body. And this is no reflection on my parents. My parents are amazing, and they did the very best that they could, but a lot of the information that I'm throwing out now is somewhat common knowledge within our collective, but was non-existent when we were younger. Sorry, I thought someone was walking there. But anyway, needs unmet. I think it's really important for us to track back and to figure out the needs that were unmet via our younger versions of ourselves, and to apply those to our modern selves, and to meet those needs of our younger selves, and to offer them protection and offer them connection, and to reconcile with each and every one of them, ensuring that every version of yourself that has ever existed, that is still inside of you, understands that you hold no resentment towards them. You're not angry at them. You love them, because every single moment that has ever happened has brought them to you now. And you now can tell yourself that you love yourself. So you must be able to find compassion for each and every one of those, to reconcile with each and every one of those, and to meet their unmet needs. And more importantly, before we get to this practice, I think it's imperative for you to recognize what your needs are now. To sit down with yourself and ask what it is that you need, what it is that you're finding difficult to deal with, and to begin to meet those needs. Perhaps most of them are needs that you can meet by yourself. Perhaps you need your needs met by your partner, or your children, or your loved ones, or your friends, and you're a people pleaser, and you find it difficult to express your needs in fear of separation, in fear of abandonment, etc. But yeah, again, if you don't meet your needs now, well, then a future version of you will be looking back, thinking about those needs and how they could have been met. Just how I'm explaining to you how we look back at our past versions now and try to deal with their unmet needs, and recognize you have the opportunity for the rest of your life to tend to your needs, to make sure that your loved ones tend to your needs, to make sure that you are tending to the needs of your loved ones. And by doing this, you're creating a better relationship with yourself and for all of those around you. And if we were all to take individual accountability for our own needs and desires, and creating compassion for every version of us that has ever existed and reconciling with all of them, well, then we would have far more intimate and beautiful relationships with ourselves. And that would reflect back on our collective species, and that would most certainly reflect back on the future generations as we teach them how to meet their needs from a younger age, as we teach them how to deal with their emotions from a younger age. And look, it's very, very difficult to go down this path. It is one of those things, when you open that door, it never closes. You're constantly finding a way to see something, some sort of pattern within. And it can also make life a little bit more difficult sometimes, because you're not repressing your emotions. You're dealing with them on a daily basis, which is sometimes difficult. It's sometimes absolutely mesmerizing and beautiful, but it gets easier the more that you start to recognize what's going on within your system. And as always, if you need help, reach out. There's plenty of professionals out there. There's plenty of beautiful humans out there that would be more than happy to help, that literally feel as though their calling is to help people. And I'm one of them. And I'm doing my very best. So if ever you feel you need some help with any of this, do reach out in the comment section, or find me on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook Messenger or whatever, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can, or in my email. But anyway, that's enough for today. I will now show you a practice that has helped me to find connection with every version of myself that have ever existed. And it's been absolutely amazing. So I'm actually going to do it from here. I was going to stand up originally, but I'm quite happy to do it from here. So let's get into it. I'll try and get a nice little spot for a thumbnail as well. It's going to be kind of a, let me see, like this look. How's my thumbnail game? So also, if you're still watching this, please subscribe and like and comment, because it really helps with the algorithm, and we're loving building this community. We're almost at 800 now, but we'll explain that in a minute. So within this practice, I'm going to stand and look at you for a second. Sit and look at you. I imagine that every version of myself that has ever existed, has now jumped out of my flesh and is energetically in front of me. Now, if you're a visual thinker like me, you can see them all. And so I just imagine a massive crowd of all of these versions of myself in front of me. And then I connect with them. And I'm not going to tell you how to connect with them if you're going to go down this road and do this practice, but I'll look down into this water right now, and I'll imagine they're all there in a crowd, literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of versions of me that have existed, and they're all standing there in unison. Not that I'm above them, not that I'm their leader, but just that I want to separate themselves from me so that I can visually experience them and talk to them and communicate with them. And the idea then is to share your love with them, to make sure that they feel as though you're not angry at them and you don't resent them, and you love them and you'll always be there for them, and you're just so happy that they've done what they've done, and they don't need to feel any shame, and they don't need to feel any resentment, and they don't need to feel angry or sad, because they've created you and you're so happy for that. And it really helps to foster a beautiful relationship with yourself, because you'll begin to understand that you are made up of every version of yourself that has ever existed, and a lot of those versions of you have created patterns in you that still exist, whether they're beautiful or whether they're difficult, but you can mend them if they are. And so we will imagine that there's all of the versions of me down here. Oh, hey, puppy. Is that Phil? Okay, we're going to take a break. Okay, my apologies for having to pause. So a dog just came up behind me, and I recognized it was my old landlord's dog. I'll turn down the aperture a little bit. So I got into conversation with my old landlord. That was cool. So just when it's very much on point, but we were speaking about old patterns, and immediately when I realized someone was coming, I felt shame because of the camera and because of me being myself. And I wanted to hide everything. I wanted to take off my microphone. I wanted to just run away, but instead I recognized that and just went over and had a nice chat, and we talked about my videos and stuff, so that was interesting. But anyway, within this practice, I'm imagining all of my versions of myself out here, and while they're there, while they're separated from me right now, I'm telling them all that I love them. I'm telling them all that I'm so happy that every one of them made every decision that they did in order to get me here. That I'm not holding any resentment or any anger. Not for the fights, not for the stealing, not for the overdoing it on the drugs and alcohol, not for the car crashes, not for any of it, and not for the breakups and how I handled everything along the way. I'm not angry. I don't hold any shame. I'm not sad. Right in this very moment, I'm so happy and I love myself, and the reason why I have the ability to do that is because every single one of them has gotten me to this very moment in time. And to be honest, I'll go much deeper than that. But for today, I'm just on the baseline skimming of what I would be saying. But yeah, it's a practice that I've been holding for years, since after my brain surgery, maybe a year or two after that. I had a spiritual awakening, if you will, and recognized this throughout a psychedelic experience, and I've practiced it every day since. And I don't need to make space every day to do it at this point. I still do when I'm out in places like this, or if I feel I need to, but more often than not, I'm just connected to all of those versions of myself within me, and constantly offering them love and support and guidance, and learning from them and learning from their patterns. And yeah, I would implore you to open up space for a practice like this if you are struggling with connection to yourself, or to all the other versions of yourself that have ever existed. Yeah, and I guess we'll leave it at that. I was interrupted there, a little bit off course, but I'm sure you get where I was going with this. And if you're still watching this, I would also implore you to become a member of the Symbiotic Vibration family. It's free to subscribe, but we're edging towards the 1,000 mark now. And yeah, the idea of this community was always to develop a space virtually in where people can share within their experience, to connect within their journeys, hopefully find like-minded individuals that can help them along the way, or who they can help. And yeah, so that we don't have to suffer alone. And I guess a virtual space like this reflects back on the physical space, and eventually we will have some physical space for symbiotic vibration to exist within. Most certainly next summer we'll be doing a lot of events. So yeah, I'll leave you all with that. I love you. Goodbye.